Yeah, we're getting ready to go. I think we're live. 1 second.
We're live.
Yeah, because we're live. Hold on one moment. So everybody can go to my page real quick and hit the share button. Sharing is caring. And I'm going to go in there also and hit my share button and start sharing with my different groups. Yeah, we're on. We're live. We're live. We're live. All right. Pop Live Debate for 88. Welcome everyone to a special edition of the People of Power Show. I'm your host and creator, Kitty London, and this actually for me is historic. I call this the Pop-litical edition. This is my first debate for my show, and I just want to thank everybody for becoming a blueprint. So, you know, when I get big and famous, I'm gonna be like, I had the first debate with all these people, and you know, you all have set the tone. So I want to thank you for being a part of my blueprint. If you are watching and you are in District 88, and for people who may not know, that covers a lot of area, mostly east, but it's from Delray all the way up to Lake Park. Over 100, I think, and 50,000 people in this district. So it's a lot. So we should have a big show tonight because this affects you. And I hope you are registered to vote. If you're not, please do so because every vote counts. So before I get into our proud sponsor, who's, I know she may be underneath me right now in our little squares, Shanitra Moore, I just want to give a quick rundown for a little history. First, Black state representative for this district, Addie Green. Then we had Hank Harper, Priscilla Taylor, Mac Bernard, Bobby Powell Jr., and we have Al Jacquet, who has joined us this evening. He's the incumbent. So who will have this seat in a month? Because we only have a month left until we are going to cast our votes and get ready for either someone new or the incumbent will take his title back. So it's up to you. We formulated some questions. So these are questions that we have already preset and they will answer them. And I have to have my wonderful timer assist me in this. And we will also open it up for as many questions as we can. It depends on the time, but we want to allow each candidate to give their, their answers. So Shanitra, I want to say thank you for sponsoring this wonderful show tonight. And I want to give you the floor and let people know what the timer role is, so that some people might not know, and also your wonderful foundation.
Well, thank you so much, Kitty, and thank you to each and every one of the candidates here tonight for taking out their time. It's a service. I mean, even the fact that you are running for this position, and I mean that from my heart. Thank you all for even being a servant to the community. So the name of my company, which we are sponsoring this edition, is Project 12. It's the name of the initiative, and the name of the company is G Holdings LLC. Project 12 is an initiative that started back in 2014, highlighting positive Black male positive leadership here in Palm Beach County. With there's so much negativity being depicted in the media, I felt that it was my duty to utilize my skill set to show the positive things that are going right on here in the backyard. So we'll talk a little bit more later on in the program about Project 12, but thank you so much, Kitty, for this opportunity to sponsor this edition, and we're glad to be here. So to go further on, as again, I'm the timer, and my goal is to keep order and structure so that everyone has an equal time to speak, as well as we have this debate in a timely manner. Each candidate will have 2 minutes each, and then there are 2 questions that we'll have where they can make additional comments at the end. But for the first 2 questions, there'll just be 2 minutes each without any rebuttal. So Kitty, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and thank you again.
You're so welcome. Thank you. All right. So everyone, please make sure, again, you hit the share button. If you are living anywhere, I would say still anywhere between Lake Park, all the way to Delray, please make sure you share this because it impacts you or someone you know. So the first question is, and you have a minute to answer this. We're going to do, I always call it background check. We're going to start with the lovely lady. We always start with ladies first on the show. We're going to give you a minute, Sienna, just to give us a brief background of who you are and what you represent.
Okay. Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for having me this evening, and a little bit about me. I was born and raised here in Florida. I'm actually a first-generation Floridian, first-generation American. I grew up in Daytona Beach and to undergrad and law school over in Tampa at University of South Florida, go Bulls. And then I became a licensed attorney, started practicing doing criminal defense and family law up in Tampa, Hillsborough County. And then I moved down here a number of years ago. And now I've been practicing law down here and really wanted to get involved and make a difference in our community. And thought State House is perfect for that.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Next, we have Mr. Omari Hardy.
Thank you, and Kitty and Shanitra for having us. My name is Omari Hardy, and first off, I'm an educator. I started my career teaching in the classroom at Roosevelt Community Middle School. I'm now out of the classroom, basically leading a partnership between the West Palm Beach Housing Authority and the School District of Palm Beach County that focuses on children who live in public housing to make sure that they have the educational resources that they need to succeed. And I'm also a city commissioner in Lake Worth Beach, where many people have come to know me over the last few months for a video that has since gone viral of me basically standing up for my constituents as the city was trying to cut power off to them as the pandemic was starting. And I just want people to know that that same tenacity with which I advocated for my residents is the same tenacity with which I will advocate for the people of House District 88. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Kitty, may I interrupt real quick? Because before I give my own introduction or anybody else goes, I was expecting to hear something from the last speaker. Right here,
I'm sorry.
talking about lies.
Okay,
London,
wait one second.
And if
Excuse
I don't
me.
get an apology,
Al,
community,
Mr. Jacquet.
I don't know how we can have this
Mr.
conversation.
Jacquet, I'm sorry. We're going to give you and Cedric an opportunity to introduce yourself. And then later on in the program, there'll be a chance that you can address whatever matters you have with Mr. Hardy or whoever else. But we're going to go ahead and keep with the introductions. And then there is a time in the program where you'll be able to address that, sir. We do have an opportunity for that. So thank you. You can go next, or Mr. Thomas, who would you like to go next?
While Mr. Jacquet has the mic.
Go ahead, Mr. Jacquet.
Thank you. I am Al Jacquet, and as I said, this has been weighing on my community, and we don't represent ourselves. We represent, as you well mentioned, over 150,000, well diverse, as you can tell by this panel, men, women, and folks from all different backgrounds. I was born in St. Martin, immigrated to Delray Beach at the age of 9, attended Banyan Creek Elementary School, Boca Middle School, Atlantic High School, wrestled, band, football player, went off to Indiana for school, studied in London for a year in organizational management, how to run a company. I'm a small business owner. I run a personal law firm right now, criminal defense, trial lawyer. As a matter of fact, I heard you discussing whether we would have time later on. I've got a young man who's sitting at Gun Club that I will be visiting tonight. Where has Al been? Al is in the community. I mentor young men throughout the county, Revere Beach, every Sunday. We feed them. We get personal protective equipment for the folks who needs it. I'm not about social media glory or getting the likes. I'm about really touching the folks on the ground. That's why we're representatives state and not up in Washington playing politics. So I'm Al Jacquet. I've been in the community. I live in Marsh Harbor and Revere Beach now, and I work within the community, play and mentor, and I look forward to going back to Tallahassee.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Cedric Thomas.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm sorry, everyone. First, let me say thank you, Ms. London and the People of Power Show, and Ms. Moore for having us here. As clearly stated, my name is Cedric Thomas. I am a lifelong resident of Riviera Beach and this district. I've served on the city council for 9 years. I've also been a member of the Riviera Beach Police Department. I am a small business owner in transportation and security. I've been in the community. I love this community. I'm willing to fight, for this community. I did go through Palm Beach County Schools and Volusia County Schools for graduation. I do have a degree in criminal justice. Basically, I want to fight because I want to be present. I want to serve you in this district. I want to make sure that you understand that if you send me to the Florida House, that we will bring back appropriations and we'll bring back policies that will make your communities better.
Thank you. Ms. London?
I have to check on, we have people chiming in right now.
Okay.
So I just wanted to remind everybody that we have people watching us. So I know that there may be some little heat and some friction. And that's understandable because no one wants to, let's just say, quote unquote, be lied on or, but we need to make sure that we get these questions answered because the people that are watching are going to vote. And sometimes they will vote just on how we act, right? So we want to make sure that everybody has a fair chance. And I want everybody to just woosah and we're going to trust me, we'll get it out tonight. It's coming out tonight, right? Right? So our first question actually is going to go to Mr. Jacquet. First question, and you're going to have 2 minutes, Mr. Jacquet, to answer this question. And this question has no room for rebuttal. So I just want to let everybody know, okay? So if you hear something you don't like, you got to keep it in until later. And if you need me to ask the question again, I will. To Mr. Jacquet, if elected, what committees would you request to serve on and why?
Great. I've been fortunate enough in my 2 terms in Tallahassee to serve on some great committees that have played historical role in the names that you mentioned that served in this seat. Committees like Ways and Means. As someone who majored in economics in undergrad, studied organizational management, a small business owner, I understand the importance for zeroing out our small business rent tax. We're the only state in the union right now that really still taxes our small businesses on their rent. So for that reason, Ways and Means is crucial to me. And that's the balance to appropriations. And when we talk about Rules Committee as the former Rules Chair for the party, and also being on the Rules Committee, understanding what it means, because a lot of people talk about the hype, but Tallahassee is about understanding how the process works, is understanding who has the keys to those appropriations we heard my colleague, Mr. Thomas mention. Who is the one holding the purse for what you need for your community? So again, rules determines the hearing of the bills. It determines the procedures of process. You can stop a lot of things. I remember when we made a motion, expected motion on the House floor after Parkland, where the leader asked to consider a bill that had not been heard in committee. It was a ban on assault rifles. It had not been heard on committee by the Republicans, and we asked to have it moved onto the floor. Well, that's a unique rule. And if you don't know those rules, you end up getting beat up like we've seen going on in politics where a party gets beat up over and over. Those rules can save you. They had to vote on it. And that was the vote that gave the impetus for the fire that we had in order to make some changes with the school safety. That was the vote that was, I think, 71-36, and it was on the board. So those are 2 key positions I want to be in, and Ted approach.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, did you need me to repeat that question?
No, not at all. I appreciate the questions because those committees are very important. As we know, if it doesn't get out of committee, it doesn't go to the floor. So with that being said, the first committee I would like to be on is the Appropriations Committee, just for what it says, appropriations. That's where, the money is going to be going. Those are the policies that are going to get funded. Those are the projects that are going to get funded. So I definitely want to be a part of the Appropriations Committee. One of the other committees that I would like to be on is the Finance and Tax Committee. Understanding where we're going to get this money from to do these projects and policies and make sure that we don't send unfunded mandates down. Understanding how we're going to tax, what we need to tax, where we need to lower taxes. So I definitely want to be a part of that committee. For what we're fighting now with this COVID-19 and Florida being the hot spot that it is, I definitely would like to be on the healthcare committee, making sure that we understand this. Most of us see our senator every night at 10 p.m., keeping us informed of what's going on with the COVID in our community. So I definitely would like to be on the healthcare committee. And for an additional, I know as a freshman coming in to the legislature, they're not going to give me many, but I'm going to definitely see if I can get these 4 in, which will round up not last, and definitely not least, last but definitely not least, the education committee. We've seen right here in our county where we have basically a fight on whether we should open schools back up or not for the brick and mortar, or keep them home for virtual schools. So that's something that I want to be able to legislate up, in committee, and make sure that we're getting, the voices heard from our school board members, from our city leaders, from our citizens. So those are the 4 committees that I would like to round out when you send me to Tallahassee.
Thank you, Mr. Cedric Thomas.
Mr. Hardy, did you need me to repeat the question?
No, ma'am. But I do want to say that it's a fantastic question because a lot of people don't realize that most of the work that gets done in Tallahassee gets done in these committees. This is where legislation is introduced. It's where legislation is amended and changed. It's where legislation is advanced or killed. And so it's very important to get on a good committee. I think the most important committee that I could get on would be the Ways and Means Committee. This is the committee that deals with all the taxation in the state of Florida. And we want our government to be able to provide an ample amount of services and programs for our residents, but every single service has to be funded. And so the Ways and Means Committee deals with how do we raise the revenue we need to fund the programs that we want. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, as Mr. Jacquet said, that he what is on the Ways and Means Committee, that he serves on the Ways and Means Committee. I think that's a little generous because in the last session, Representative Jacquet only attended 33% of the Ways and Means Committee's meetings, which means that he missed 2/3 of that committee's work. And so, I believe that our district has too many needs for us to send people up to Tallahassee so that they can miss the crucial meetings that they themselves have admitted are very important, not only for the district, but for the state of Florida. And Representative Jacquet, again, missed 2/3 of those meetings, 2/3 of that work. And if you send me to Tallahassee, I'm going to show up for the district. I'm going to do the work in the same way that I did it here in Lake Worth Beach. And so I very much appreciate, again, the opportunity to talk about this. Ways and Means Committee is extremely important. If I had a second choice, it would probably be education. Myself being a 4th-generation educator, it's something that I care deeply about. And I believe that we have a lot of work to do in the state of Florida with respect to education, expanding voluntary pre-kindergarten, funding our schools, giving raises to teachers, not just starting teachers, but to career teachers so that you don't see the salary scale compress and new teachers making nearly as much as 10-year or 15-year teachers. And in addition to that, college. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Ms. Osta, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good. I think it's a really great question. And there are 3 committees that I would like to join. The first being Health and Human Services. And that's mostly because our healthcare and our Medicaid programs are in crisis right now. And we really need to sit down and have a look at those so that we can provide better healthcare to our citizens. The second committee would be the Education Committee. Similar to my colleagues here, I recognize that we've got a problem with funding to the public schools and our teachers and our educators, and we need better funding for the schools. And the third one that I would like to join is the Appropriations Committee, and that's primarily because District 88 has historically been given the short end of the stick in receiving economic opportunity and really just support in general. And I mentioned earlier in my introduction, I am an attorney and a litigator, and I'm used to fighting for my clients, and the funding that we need here is something that I would fight to the death for.
Thank you.
And I know that we are going to get to rebuttals, and I see that people want to answer questions already, but we will get to that. The next question, I'm going to start with you, Mr. Thomas. What do you think are the top 3 responsibilities of a state representative, and what would you focus on?
Thank you for that question. The very first responsibility of a state representative is to make sure that they are listening to their constituents. The state representative is charged with taking the needs of the district up and getting them voted on and finding ways to get them through committee and to the floor. So that's one. The second thing I think that a state representative needs to do is actually be available when needed. If a state representative is not available when needed, the district falls asleep. They don't make it seem as important as it should be. Thirdly, I think a state representative is supposed to bring home the bacon to all of the cities that are within that district, and they need to work hard to do that. If you're doing anything outside of those 3, I don't believe that you're working for the district. I'm not going to be disingenuous and say that our current representative has not fought to get things home, because most of the cities have gotten some appropriations done. What I would like to do is build on where he left it and get more appropriations home, so that people understand that even though Palm Beach County may be a rich county, one of the richest, of course, in the state, maybe even the country, that is certain areas, especially in District 88, that have been underserved and don't get all of their policies funded and don't get the projects that they need done. As you can see, the governor cut $1 billion worth of spending, and a lot of that is in District 88. So it's important. We need to be able to work with everybody there.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Okay.
Thomas.
Next, we're going to Ms. Osta again. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, if you could.
Okay. What do you think are the top 3 responsibilities of a state representative, and what would you focus on?
Okay, that's a really great question. I think primarily the main focus is creating and debating and voting on legislation that either makes new laws or modifies the existing laws that we have. One of the primary things I would focus on is being the voice for the needs of the people here in District 88. And I do that through being available 24/7 and offering honest and open lines of communication with everybody in this district.
Took all your time, but it's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, ma'am. So I would say that, and you know, these are my 3, but every state representative has at least these 3 responsibilities, I think. The first would be to legislate, which is to make laws. I would say probably the second would be to provide services to their constituents when they show up to their office or when they call their office back in the district. And the last thing, and this might be probably more important than the other 2 in a lot of different ways, but it's to be a presence in the district, especially in times of crisis, so that when these crises occur, such as the one that we're living through right now, that you can be there to be a voice of moral clarity and provide moral leadership to people in the district. And one of the reasons why I'm in this race is because on all 3 of these issues, I think many of us have found the incumbent representative to be wanting. And, you know, in particular, when you look at his, Representative Jacquet's record on lawmaking, you'll find that he hasn't passed any bills except for small amendments or small appropriations to the budget. And so basically, if you're a lawmaker, it's your job to make laws. And that's not what Representative Jacquet has been doing. In addition to that, it's been reported by the Palm Beach Post that the representative lost his office in the district. He didn't have an office in the district for at least 6 months to a year because he was irresponsible with the funding that the state gave him to pay for his district. So you're an office holder, but you haven't held in office for a period of time, and that hampers your ability to provide services to your constituents. And as far as being able to provide that moral leadership in the district in times of crises, the legislative session ended in March. COVID-19 has really hit this community hard, and we haven't seen much of Representative Jacquet. So if you're a lawmaker, we expect you to make laws. If you're an office holder, we expect you to hold an office and provide services to your constituents. And if you're a public servant, we really expect you to have it together enough and to be around enough to actually serve the public. And we haven't gotten that. I think that's one of the reasons why we have so many challenges in the race.
Thank you.
And it's one of the reasons why I think I would be an upgrade over the representative.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Great, thank you. Mr. Jacquet, do you need me to repeat the question?
Thank you for the question. I really appreciate this. And this is why this is the only event that I've done as far as campaigning and debating. Because see, politics is split between political party and the people fall through the cracks. While my opponent may be fighting for the Democratic Party, not realizing that he's fighting for his master's plantation house, what he needs to realize is that the folks within District 88 are unique and they need what they need. The role of a state representative is not about showboating. It's not about being everywhere, spreading COVID while your community needs it. The number one and only constitutional requirement for your legislator is to pass a balanced budget. I didn't hear that mentioned by my opponents, except for Mr. Thomas, who mentioned that the budget, bringing home the bacon, is important. You hear about being a voice, being showy, showing up on social media, being ever present, but you don't hear anyone talking about giving the necessary protective equipment to our Black nurse practitioners here in Palm Beach County. While you're showboating and fighting at city council, and we're visiting families who have young children and ill elderly, providing them with masks, sanitizers, and shopping for them so they don't have to go. But to you, a state representative is dressing up nice, showing up on social media, and showing everyone what you're doing. This is the problem with politics. That's why I don't watch and don't interview with Palm Beach Trash News or any of these trash newspapers. They're all leaning towards a plantation politics, and our Black and brown children continue to die. Mr. Hardy needs to answer why he's been at the helm as an educator in Palm Beach County, 28% Black, and yet 65% who are charged as adults are Black.
Thank you so much.
How can you stand here and say you're going to do something better?
Thank you, Mr. Jacquet.
All right, thank you, everybody. That was the first the round, so we're gonna give everybody time to cool down and drink some water and drink some tea and look at some of the comments that you're getting, and we will definitely have a few that we'll be able to open up to the general public. Of course, they will only be tasteful. And to the people who are watching, if you have a certain person that you want to ask a question to, you can, or you can choose to ask the forum so they can all have a fair chance to answer them. So right now we're going to do a quick break for our sponsor, Shanitra Moore, also our timer, and then we'll get ready for the second half, which will have room for rebuttals.
Thank you, Ms. London. I don't know if you're going to show it to the speaker view on the Zoom. Again, thank you all. We are honored to sponsor this edition of this debate. Some very valuable information, getting to know the candidates. And so I'm glad to be here as your title sponsor. Again, Project 12, one of the reasons why this is very instrumental in the time such as now. This is the cover of the Palm Beach County edition. We also have a Broward County edition, which we launched the Broward Market last year. We're in our 7th year. And one of the reasons why this is very instrumental now, because the way that the Black male is being depicted in the media is showing of less value for life. So my publication is really for the next generation, showing them that their neighbors, their coaches, their teachers, they may never meet a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan, but they know Coach Jones, who works with them after hours, who goes on field trips with them. They may know their local doctor. They may know a local attorney that has imparted in their life. So I created this publication so that we could have something tangible with local Black men that are leaders here, right here in Palm Beach County, right here in Broward County, and next we're going to be in Dade County. So thank you again. We are working on the 2021 edition. Please reach out to me if you would like to participate or place an advertisement in the publication. I can be reached at, we'll put my information on the Facebook Live at 561-632-6051. That's 561-632-6051. Thank you, Ms. London.
Gallery review. All right, now it is time for round two. And I see people asking questions. So we're going to make sure that the candidates may answer the question that you currently have. So we'll wait until the last question, and then I'll ask if anyone has questions, because again, they may address your question. Where did Mr. Jacquet go? You there? Galaxy 8?
Oh yeah, Mr. Jacquet is here.
Okay, okay. I got you on the first question, so I want to make sure you were ready.
Perfect. All right, let's go.
Okay, so the first question is, due to the coronavirus, our state has suffered some massive economic losses, which recently forced Governor DeSantis to cut nearly $1 billion from the state budget. How does or did this affect Palm Beach County?
And thank you. If anyone follows the legislature closely, and I can tell by the response of one of my colleagues who's very divisive earlier that doesn't follow the legislature, it's all show. But if you follow the legislature, you will have seen that I was the first one on the House floor to mention to the speaker and the entire body, this corona thing is potentially going to be a crisis. Because I sat on Ways and Means, when we were discussing the budget on the House floor, I asked the chairman, I said, I didn't ask this question prior because we didn't know about corona, but now that we're facing it, how is this budget going to be affected? They sort of dismissed it and said, well, the governor has some money to take care of it. Well, that was on Thursday. Friday goes by, and on Monday, the speaker gets up to open session and says, this thing is blown up. It's going to be a pandemic. We're going to have to shift things around. So being a leader is being forward thinking. Had they listened to what I said and actually started to move the pieces around, we wouldn't face this $1 billion cut. Palm Beach County is affected. I fought for the Addie Green Park and Mangonia Park. We've got the Early Learning Center in Revere Beach. We've got the Roosevelt African American Museum, actually, which was the only one that was saved out of personal projects. We've got a 3.2 million jobs growth fund, and that's through relationships. I heard Mr. Omari mention that it's about showing up to committees. Well, if you can't do work with 5 people when you're 20% of a city, you can't get work done. How are you going to do it with 120? It's not about committees. If you wait for the committee to get bills fixed, you've lost. It must be done prior. So when you don't see me there, I'm with the key appropriations chair getting the money like Cedric mentioned. It's done behind doors. It's not done openly in committees. Votes have already been taken. So we need to make sure we're more forward thinking in order to affect and avoid certain catastrophes like this financially. But it's not about sitting in a committee and not getting work done.
Thank you, Mr. Jacquet. Thank you so much, sir.
And I just had to do a quick reminder. This is a section where we will have chance for rebuttals. Everyone will have a chance for a rebuttal, and the rebuttals will be timed by Shanitra. So I just want to make sure that we know this. Commissioner Hardy.
So the rebuttals is 1 minute. So whoever would like to make a statement, please go ahead.
First of all, I don't want to use my rebuttal at this time. I'll wait until everyone else provides their response, and I'll use my rebuttal at that time. So have I been called on to give my response to the actual question? Okay.
Yes. Do I need to repeat the question for you?
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we don't count that against my time. I just wanted to let you know. Okay. I just want to let you know I wasn't using my rebuttal at this time. So yes, the first thing is the governor did have what he called a budgetary red wedding. If you're somebody who watches Game of Thrones, where he slashed a lot of the budget, and he did this unilaterally because he has the line item veto power. The president of the United States, for example, is the chief executive. He can't veto individual budget items. He can only veto the whole budget, take it or leave it. The governor has a unique power in that he can take individual appropriations or line items and veto them and cut them. And that's what he did. It's one of the reasons why, for example, that while I think appropriations is extremely important for a legislator to get out of the legislature, you don't want to sell out your whole legislative strategy to bring money home, because at the end of the day, you can get it out of the legislature, but you might not be able to get it past the governor's desk. So you might have made all these deals with your colleagues in the House, but when it gets to the governor's desk, it gets vetoed. And that's happened to a lot of legislators a lot. And so it's really more important to take a holistic approach to your job as a legislature. Now, most of what the governor cut had to do with member projects. These are the appropriations that individual members have gotten for their districts. He cut hundreds of millions of dollars for that. So no member came home with a project. And unfortunately, he cut things that we need to get through this COVID-19 crisis. He cut millions of dollars in funding for virtual learning, for example. And now is the time when we need to be pumping resources into virtual learning and broadband connectivity and public broadband so that students can keep up with their education while they're at home. And so it was a very unfortunate event. We saw $1 billion cut out of the budget. It's not the way that we want to do things. And on the representative's point, since I have time left, on the representative's point, I just want to be clear. Every other member of the committee attended more than 85% of the meetings of the Ways and Means Committee. So he's talking about how bad it was and how much needed to be done, in the legislature, but he literally missed 2/3 of the meetings in the most important committee that's relevant to the budget. And everybody else is attending these meetings, even though he's saying, well, that's not where the work is. Well, apparently your colleagues are mistaken, because that's where they're showing up 85% of the time, where you only attended 33% of the meetings for the.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Thank you so much.
We get a quick response to the rebuttal?
Yes, you have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. And so this is where someone being so new and so divisive, you spoke about, Shanitra, you spoke about the way Black men are portrayed in the media. See, I refuse to portray my opponent negatively because he's a Black man and I represent him. See, but when he takes Trump-style politics and lies publicly about stuff and stands behind those lies and continue to just perpetuate the same lies to folks thinking that he's going to get sympathy from them, that is not the way you lead. You need to be bold. Again, I will tell you, whether another representative sat at the meeting the entire time or went in and out or not, or got checked in with the clerk to be present or not, I will tell you, my opponent needs to learn this. Tallahassee is about behind the doors talk. When you sit in committee, the votes have been done. You wouldn't know this, Mr. Omari, because you can't get anything done in Lake Worth. You don't work well with anybody. You have zero results. I put body cameras on police in Delray. Have you done that?
Thank you. So you'll have another opportunity for another rebuttal. Thank you so much, sir.
Ms. London?
Are you ready to use your rebuttal?
I am ready to use my rebuttal.
All right, timer. And then we're going to go on to Sienna.
Yeah.
Okay, first, he's already used this rebuttal. He's used this rebuttal. Now, this is not a rebuttal.
Mr. Thompson, okay. I have the floor, gentlemen. Mr. Thompson, he answered the question. He did not use his rebuttal.
Well, he
answered the question that Kitty has on the floor. He is now using his rebuttal. You and Miss Sienna both have rebuttals left, and she also has her question that she needs to answer. So you have the floor, Mr. Hardy. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. The first thing I have to say is, as someone who taught Black young men at Roosevelt Community Middle School and who works with Black young men through the Housing Authority with the partnership that we have with the school district, I care about how Black men are portrayed. But it's one of the reasons, excuse me, I thought I had the floor. It's one of the reasons why I believe we should hold our representatives to a high standard. If you are fortunate enough to be one of those African-American men to stand up there in the legislature where we couldn't even vote to put people there, if you're fortunate enough to be there, you just comport yourself like a person of distinction. And, the representative said that he wouldn't portray me negatively when he was removed from the Rules Committee for slurring me on his radio show and on his social media live. And so, I think this is very important. I care about how Black men are portrayed, but unfortunately I cannot watch this district, which is—
When are you going to stop lying?
Okay.
Stop lying. It did not happen.
Mr. Jacquet.
It did not happen.
Mr. Jacquet.
You need to stop slandering Black men.
Mr. Jacquet.
Stop
I
it.
need
I'm
you
not
to
gonna sit
comply.
here and allow you to
Mr.
slander
Jacquet,
something that has been
excuse me,
proven.
Mr.
I'm not gonna
Jacquet,
listen to lies.
Mr.
This is not
Jacquet,
Trump
in
politics
order
here.
for you to
There are
continue on the
people who
panel,
are hungry
sir,
who needs
we're
food.
gonna need you to comply. You're gonna have another opportunity, but we're gonna need you to comply. So
But
we're
the
not
people
gonna be
want
rude
answers,
to,
not accusations on each
okay,
other. The people
when
want results.
when you get the
So let's
floor
stop
again,
playing
sir, you
games.
can address it.
It's
I'm gonna
about
need,
results, not
Kitty, I'm gonna
accusations.
need you to mute that.
It's
Go
If I
ahead.
good.
can just have
Okay.
10 seconds, 10
Go
seconds
ahead,
to
sir,
finish.
you got, go ahead.
Okay. You know,
Finish your thought.
I find it interesting that the gentleman complained
I mean, how many
about
rebuttals
me.
does he get? How many rebuttals does he get?
I got-
Kitty,
Get
please.
to
How many
finish
does he
that.
get?
I was
Okay, go
interrupted
ahead.
That's
in
all
the
I'm
middle.
asking. How many does he
Mr.
get?
Okay, excuse me. Mr. Thompson, he's only had one rebuttal.
Thank you.
He's just
The
been
rest of us haven't even
interrupted.
answered the
Okay,
question yet.
excuse me. I have the floor. He's been interrupted on his 1 minute rebuttal 3 times, sir. He's only had one rebuttal. Everybody gets one rebuttal. So this is another
Let me
interruption
understand a single
of
truth.
his one rebuttal. This is the 4th interruption. So I'm gonna have Kitty mute and everyone else except for Mr. Omari and myself. Go ahead, sir. You have about 20 seconds left.
Okay, I just wanted to say that it's funny. Representative Jacquet said I can't work with anybody, but here I am following all the rules of this forum, not interrupting anyone. And it's Mr. Jacquet who has had to be reprimanded for his conduct here. The representative was removed by the Democratic caucus, which was led by a black man from Miami named Representative Keone McGee. He removed Representative Jacquet from the Rules Committee for slurring me, a black man, on the radio and on his Facebook live show. So he talks about not criticizing me because I'm a black man, but he did precisely that and was reprimanded by one of the first African-American leaders of the House. Thank you. So,
Thank you, Mr. Hardy, and I apologize for that. The break, you had to keep picking up. So thank you, Ms. London. We're going to go on to the question from Ms. Sienna, and anyone else that has a rebuttal left, Mr. Thomas or Ms. Sienna, you'll be able to rebuttal. Thank you, Ms.
You
London.
needed to repeat the question, Ms. Osta.
I don't, but it's a good, with coronavirus, we do find ourselves in unprecedented, uncharted territories here. And because of that and the recent massive economic losses that we've had, all of our cities in Palm Beach County are facing a drastic budget crisis due to the combined loss of tax dollars from businesses and from tourism being lost out. It's hard to have tourists come here to Florida when we've got Corona spreading like wildfire. So I think due to those things, our state funds are going to continue to decline, and all of this can and it needs to be fixed by our federal government. Our federal government is still in denial. So if in Tallahassee, that's one of the things that I will fight tooth and nail for, is to get District 88 the proper attention that it deserves and the proper budgeting that we deserve here in District 88.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sienna.
All right.
Ms. Sienna and Mr. Thompson, you both have rebuttals left on that question. Would you like to speak at this time?
I haven't even gotten a chance to answer the question.
Yeah, they want to answer the questions. Answer the questions first and then the rebuttals.
Okay, so
I'm not trying to be flip or anything, but my name is Cedric Thomas.
Okay.
And I like to be addressed as such.
Okay.
And, what really needs to happen here is, it needs to be an open and a fair debate. All of us want to talk, right? I got nothing against anybody here, but all of us want to have a chance to talk. So we're being respectful, and we would definitely like to just get the same level of respect from everybody else. This is not a Hardy and a Jacquet show. It is a debate for District 88. I want to fight too, but I want to fight for you in Tallahassee, not with this is what's going on here. Now, on to the question. Basically for me, the governor cut what he cut, and he's going to continue to cut the things that are not important, to him. And what you do is you remove your governor, you get another governor, you show up and you vote, and you won't have to worry about that the same way that people are going to do in this district, right? We know that a bunch of stuff got cut out for our district, our areas, in Riviera Beach, in West Palm Beach. A lot of different things got cut out, right? So That's what he chose to do. He does have that power. He does have that power to do that. But you need to show up and select a governor that will make sure that it will be fair when you have to make a cut, and not just making sure that our district suffers as it has been.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
As my
Mr.
rebuttal,
Thomas, that was it, Mr. Thomas. You have no.
That's
Okay.
our rebuttal when it's time to rebut.
Okay, so there are 2 rebuttals left for that line of question with Ms. Sienna and Mr. Thomas are the only 2 that have rebuttals left. You have a minute each. So if you'd like to say something in regard to that question, now is the time before we go to the next question.
Was my 30-second response to the rebuttal my rebuttal?
You've already had your rebuttal for this question, Mr. Jacquet. We do have another question where you will have an opportunity for another rebuttal, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Sienna, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, so I do have, I'll try to keep it brief and only a minute here, but Mr. Jacquet touched on an interesting point with Mr. O'Hardy's commission meeting and the video that went viral. I saw that video, and when I first saw it, I will honestly say that I was very moved by his performance. But the other part of me was, sort of took a step back and thought, well, wait a minute. It sounded great. I guess it was great, but at the end of the day, he didn't really affect change from that meeting. I believe that Mr. O'Hardy had to go to the press and get their attention to put pressure on those companies. I'm not going to go too much into that, but what Florida needs, what District 88 needs, is someone who is calm and collected and a skilled negotiator who will work with the others, whether Democrat or Republican, and get the results that are for the best interest of the people here in this district.
Thank you, Ms. Sienna. Mr. Thomas?
No rebuttal for that question.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Osta, we're going to start with you on the next question. One of the issues that have been discussed is school choice. Can you explain to me what that is and why you do or do not support school choice?
So as an initial answer, I don't support it. But at this point, I think it's really important to point out that coronavirus has made this moot at this time. We've got, for the foreseeable future, we have our children attending school online and basically getting their education virtually. I am definitely a big proponent of the virtual online schools right now because I don't think our schools are ready to open. The numbers for coronavirus are going up every single day. So we're not ready to send our kids back to schools in person yet. But assuming pre-COVID or post-COVID, when it comes to the issues of school choice, I would not support our state forcing our public school budgets to be, forced to share the budget with for-profit educational programs. And many times those programs or those schools are not held accountable for their actions. So I think that the unfunded mandates from Tallahassee need to stop.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Cedric Thomas. Do I need to repeat the question, Mr. Thomas? You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, yes. Go ahead and repeat the question, please.
One of the issues that have been discussed is school choice. Can you explain to me what that is and why you do or do not support it?
Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding the question. When you're saying school choice, are you just speaking of whether they want to go to a normal zone public school or whether they want to go to a charter school in terms of school choice? If you're speaking of those two differences, to me, I think it should be the parent's choice. If they feel that a charter school has what their child needs and they can, excel. Some of them have like different trades and stuff that they can pick up. then I think they should be able to go there. If they want to go to a regular zone school, they could. In terms of what we're facing in this county right now, in terms of whether should they go back to school to the brick and mortar schools, no, they shouldn't, in my opinion. However, if we give the parents a choice, we're not giving the teachers and staff a choice. And that's just something that we're clearly faced with at this time. And it's a tough decision. But for me, if I had a vote on it, I would have to vote that we keep the facilities closed until we find out where COVID-19 is taking us. This area is a hot spot. There's thousands of people dying. And whether they're dying every day or we just getting the numbers every day, they keep growing. So we must look at this seriously. We cannot let not one child die because we want to force them back to school early. That is just not the answer to this. Do any of us have the answer? No, right? Because if we did, it will be that way. But what I think we do need to do is, why don't we involve some of the educators, some of the practitioners, the teachers, the principals, some of these individuals who work with our kids every day, and maybe they have some ideas that could help us. I'm open for any idea that would get us back to normal, but I'm not willing to risk the health of not just our students, but our staff, our bus drivers, our principals, our custodians, all that. I'm not willing to risk that.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
All right, Mr. Hardy, you're up next. Do I need to repeat the question?
No, ma'am. And the question really pertains to charter schools, right? And so this term, quote unquote, school choice, was a term that was thought up by Republican legislators and charter school lobbyists. It was a heavily poll tested and focused group term because they wanted to figure out how can we sell the idea of charter schools to the public. They put people together in focus groups, tried lots of different terms, they poll tested it, and school choice was the term that they came up with. And the fact of the matter is, the charter school genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. I turned 30 this year. I was in the 3rd grade when Jeb Bush got into office, and that's when you really saw charter schools take off, not just as an alternative for people with very specific needs or who want a very specific type of education. For example, there are charter schools that focus on maritime vocational skills, boat building and things like that. That's a very specific issue. There's the Ernie Els School for Autism. That's a charter school that focuses on a very specific segment of the population whose needs it may be difficult to meet with a large public school district like Palm Beach County's, which is the 10th largest school district in America. And so as far as you know, school choice goes, I think it's a deceptive term. Again, it's a slogan. It was heavily poll tested, and but unfortunately, it's out of the bottle. I think the question is whether we think that these charter schools, which basically should be continued, basically to be funded with public dollars, and that's the key thing. A charter school is funded with public dollars, but it's not operated by the public. It's not accountable to the public. They're privately owned and often owned by for-profit companies. And crucially, they're not held to the same standards as public schools. And they get to cherry pick our children. Every single dollar that goes to a charter school is a school that can't go to a JFK middle school where the kids need lots of resources. Every single dollar that goes to a charter school that's not for a specific part of the population, like children with autism or children looking for specific skills, is a dollar that could have been used, for example, to rebuild old Roosevelt High School, which desperately needs to be addressed. So that's the issue. Thank you.
Question, or you have it?
We can't hear you. We couldn't hear you. Go ahead, Kitty.
Oh yeah, somebody was muted, not me. No, thank you. And you know, this is the deception of politics. Public schools are the most segregated institution in America. NPR, National Public Radio, a Democratic, really, I mean, non-party, but Democratic leaning, wrote a major article that said, you know, this is why I wanted to do this. And I didn't do the other interviews. I don't want to talk politics. I want to talk policy. And you see the experience versus non-experience here. You hear Mr. Thomas, who actually served on his city board for a healthy period of time and didn't abandon his first term, who has ran for this House seat before and has some level of understanding within the district. That choice, empowering parents is what it's about. Listen, guys, I know you're out there listening. Don't fall for the politics of public school, public school. Every time you fight to fund public schools, Mr. O'Hardy and his folks take $23 billion and gives it, read the article for yourself, NPR. White public school districts receive $23 billion more than 51% or more Black public schools. So while we're advocating for more funding, that funding is going to your massa's house. We need to be making sure our kids have education. Some of the highest ranking educators in America at UC Berkeley, all over, says the number one factor to high speeding a child's success are the peers around who they sit in class. So we want our kids to sit in Trump's kids' school and Obama's kids' school. Obama supports choice. AOC supports choice. But this antiquated, segregated system where we're piping our young boys to the prison, I hear Mr. O'Hardy wants to continue supporting that. 28% Black in Palm Beach, and yet 65% who were charged as adults were Black. 61% who were arrested in schools were Black. This is a shame, and you can't throw money at a bad problem and fix it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now we have time for a rebuttal. So who wants to go first as far as a rebuttal? Does anybody have any rebuttals? No rebuttals?
I would like to use my rebuttal.
Go ahead, Mr. Hardy.
Sure. First of all, public schools are segregated because our neighborhoods are segregated, and local land use policies, which our cities and our counties are responsible for, are one of the reasons why our public schools are segregated, because it's based on neighborhood zoning and map drawing. Secondly, more money does unfortunately go to white schools, but that doesn't mean that you need to take money away from white and Black schools to get more money in the African-American community. You could simply come up with a progressive funding model like I have on my website, omarihardy.com/education, where you can come up with a formula to give more money to the schools that need it most. That's number one. And the last thing is, he talked about the school to prison pipeline. He talked about suspensions and things like that. Charter schools participate in that too. And it's funny because I've seen it as a teacher. I have got some of my most challenged students mid-year because they've been rejected by a charter school. And I've had some of my best students leave mid-year because the charter schools are basically cherry picking them. So charter schools participate in the same ills that our public schools participate in. We need more funding for them.
Thank
in addition to that. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to rebut.
Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
My problem is with the statement that Commissioner Hardy just made is it's just simply not true. A lot of charter schools don't cherry pick. A lot of charter schools take those kids who are not performing well and give them a different opportunity. Now, there may be some that are just business only. I've had the opportunity to work with a maritime charter school, a couple of maritime charter schools, and I've had a chance to work with a school that deals with autism. And I'm able to see those things that they do on a daily basis. Don't bring this as either all or nothing. It does not work, right? It does not work. And it's not just, schools are not segregated anymore just because of where you live, because they still bust you all over the place, correct? Right? So it's not just about that. It's a specific systemic racist issue that they cut everything from the things that we do. No school in Palm Beach County out of the 180 plus of them should have any less than the other ones. We decide where that money goes. Don't bring that politics stuff to me.
Thank you.
With that. And don't bring this stuff about charter schools cherry pick. They work hard, and a lot of them deal with kids that nobody else wants to deal with.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Jacquet, you had a rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. And
one minute, Mr. Jacquet.
The folks who are watching, I want you to take notice the difference between experience and folks who are on the ground in your community who understand the needs of, listen, our district is over 60% Black and brown. I have no beef, no qualms about it. I am representing majority young Black and brown children. And if Mr. O'Hardy wants to sit there and deny the fact that our public schools is just a setup for prisons, then he is just playing politics. That's why only the white folks have supported him and endorsed him. Look at his page, all white, because he is not fighting for District 88. Mr. O'Hardy, District 88 has unique issues they care about, not what the plantation masters care about. Stop fighting for public schools and fight for parents' choice. Stop fighting to send more money to your white counterparts while they make you fight for it. And did you know 85% of public school teachers across this country are white females?
Thank you,
85%.
Thank you, Mr. Jacquet.
And we just gave $500 million raises to public school
Thank you,
teachers.
sir.
Thomas is right. Spread it.
Thank you. Miss Sienna, did you have any remarks, ma'am?
We're going to give everybody a little breather, I'll say a 1 minute breather. I want to ask our audience, because I can't read all the questions. You have a ton of comments and a ton of questions. So each candidate honestly will be able to go back on the page and read through the thousands of comments that you currently have at this time. And if you want to individually address anyone who may have said something to you or about you, please feel free, because I always tell people, save your face, is your name, and you have to defend it, right? But I want to make sure that we can give some people an opportunity to ask a question, because these are the voters, and the voters really do count. So I'm asking anyone if you can type quickly if you have any questions for our candidates, whether it's a direct question, and it has to be, of course, PG friendly, or if you have a panel question, please, you have a time now. So like I said, you have 1 minute and we'll get your thoughts, because we're going to be doing closing arguments. And
we have 6 minutes total left. So we got time for one quick question and any remarks, and then we'll close it out.
I think for conversation wise, because I know I like to talk, I think the closing remarks, if I'm not mistaken, was it a minute? Was it a minute?
Well, we're gonna take any question from the audience. If you want to pull one question and give the candidates an opportunity to answer that, and then I'll close out, and then you'll make the final closing remarks. We have time for one audience question.
Let me see if I can hold on 1 second. I think, Lord, Matthew James, wow, has a paragraph. Hold on 1 second. Let me just see if I can. Okay, I think I can ask this question. I think this will be for everyone. It's a long question, so hopefully you can get most of it. Mr. Matthew James typed a paragraph, but I love the enthusiasm, so thank you. It says, thanks for the opportunity to ask a question this evening. With all due respect, speaking for myself, the topic of education in July of 2020 is far more nuanced and complex than the binary answer to the question of school choice. In the country where a 15-year-old African-American young woman can be incarcerated during a global pandemic because a judge rules that not completing her schoolwork violated probation, we need to focus on the current and inspiring elected officials. Elected officials will do to dismantle the school to prison pipeline in our Black, brown communities, and rebuild the most equitable and effective educational structure in place. With that in mind, if you had $5 million, this is the question, if you had $5 million to spend on education in our community, what would you spend it on? So we'll start with Mr. Thomas. What would you spend it on, Mr. Thomas? If you had $5 million to spend on education, what would you spend it on? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Just a quick answer so everybody can get in. The first thing I would do with the $5 million is try to bring the compression issue under control, pay our teachers a whole lot more. The other things that I would do is bring back the trades that they had when I was in school. And although I'm very young at 43, we still had home ec. I still remember Miss Carson and home ec and making things. And we had Mr. Wiggum in shop and some of those other skills that maybe everybody is not going to go to college, right? So I would beef the school system back up with those trades. And we had North Tech and South Tech, and you could be an EMT and you can come out with your cosmetology license. those things need to come back, right? Because let's face it, not everybody is going to go to school post primary, right? So we need to have some other options that they can do. Trades are big, plumbing, electrical, all of those things. So I would take that money to beef those programs back up in our district.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm going to go around because I think,
Okay.
everybody wants to talk. Okay.
Okay.
Kat, go ahead.
All right, I'll echo some of what Mr. Thomas said. What's very important are vocational trades. We noticed that there's been a real dwindling of those. That's why I filed a bill to create a vocational education commission. And that would be between the private industry, construction and welding and all those, the public industry, our unions, and also sitting with our educators like Palm Beach State College. We would then formulate a curriculum by which students can get whatever certification to get into the job. My brother went to South Tech and ended up teaching at South Tech. He is now a Class A state licensed air conditioning contractor. One of our local commissioners went. So that's where the money, but what I would do with the money is give it to parents. Because see, what we failed to do is while we're paying teachers more, which we've done, right now, we gave teachers the biggest raise they've ever had. A starting teacher in Florida gets $47,500. I encourage more Black teachers to go out. But we can't keep a blind eye and pretend like our public schools is not truly segregated purposefully in order to over-police our Black men and incarcerate them.
Thank you, Mr. Jacquet.
Oh, I didn't hear. Did you say?
Yeah, did you want to answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you had $5 million, what would you do for education?
I think honestly, the first thing I'd have to do is actually sit down to look at the budget of each school in our district to see who needs what exactly to better each school as a separate individual unit. You can't just apply one. This is not a Band-Aid. You can't just slap it on and have a quick fix. Each school deserves its own individual attention dedicated to it. So after looking at each one individually and giving it the proper attention that they deserve, I am sort of going to echo on my colleagues here. I think that we do need more funding for vocational school trade type classes like shop class and welding and things like that. I think it kind of keeps kids motivated and gives them something to look forward to in school as opposed to just the normal maths and sciences that maybe don't interest everybody. Another thing is that I know some schools have adopted this, but a curriculum that does partner with local community colleges so that juniors and seniors can go to the local community college and work on getting almost like AP type classes or credits to where they're.
Thank you, Miss.
So that's
I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much, Miss Sienna.
I would also buy more time.
Mr. Hardy?
Thank you. First off, you're looking at a Black educator who was the son of two Black educators, who was the grandson of a Black educator, and who's the great-grandson of a Black educator. You get more Black educators in the field by funding education and making sure that you can pay salaries to attract people. And while it is true that new teachers now are making $47,000 a year, look at the salary scale, because 10-year teachers are making that same amount. So in 10 years, you don't get one raise because the focus was all on raising new teacher salaries and not on the career people. You have to address that too. But if I had $5 million in the year 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, I would spend it on broadband solutions for our children. In particular, in the Black community and poor Black communities, there are areas where you can't even get high-speed internet, such as Pleasant City, certain parts of it between Spruce and Broadway. AT&T doesn't provide broadband. Comcast doesn't even provide broadband, so you can't take advantage of the programs that they've created for high-speed internet. I would spend that $5 million getting that broadband so children can continue to have their education and learn remotely. In addition to that, I would bring the vacations back. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, how are we looking on time, Shanitra?
We're actually over by 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just ask, and I know everybody's tired, but I just have to ask one more question because it did come up and a lot of people are facing this issue. So if we can please just squeeze in one more question, and I want to actually give you all an extra minute for closing, because I think for really closing remarks are really important. Is how you leave us. And I think 1 minute, it won't do you justice. So if you want that opportunity to get that extra minute for closing, I will give that to you. And I want to thank you for your patience. But I did have someone ask about affordable housing. So it can be anyone who wants to answer that question, but what they're saying basically, what is your take on affordable housing? What are you going to do? What can you do? Because people are in need right now. So if anyone wants to answer that question, you can get a minute.
Well, let me jump in first and answer that question. As the sitting representative, this is the first time in over 20 years that our Sadowski Fund, which is the trust fund that houses the money for affordable housing, it was not touched, it was not swept. This is something we've been fighting for decades. So while folks are running, want to say, well, we're gonna keep them from sweeping affordable, this year, we paid teachers more than they've ever gotten. Schools got more money than they've ever gotten, public schools. And yet they want more and more and more while our Black kids have less and less options. So we want to make sure that we take care of those who are in need most. So the affordable housing piece, no money was taken out of it this year. And when you talk about passing appropriations, but the governor may still veto it, that's why you need to learn to have good relationships. Don't go on social media and batter other people. There are 151,000 people who depend on your relationships to get that bacon home. So if you're going there to throw bombs because of your master's plantation party,
Thank you, Mr.
Your
Jacquet.
Black and brown kids are gonna suffer.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to answer the question in regards to affordable housing?
Yeah, may I hear the question again, please?
Basically, they wanted to know, what do you have as planned for affordable housing? How do you plan to help with the affordable housing in our area?
So the first thing is it's important. The state has a trust fund for affordable housing, and from 2003 all the way through 2019, the state took money out of that affordable housing trust fund and spent it on other things. This was the first year where, when the legislature ended, it looked like 100% of that trust fund money was going to be there. The governor then cut about $200 million out of that trust fund money and replaced it with housing money that came from the COVID CARES Act. And I think it's disingenuous to say that, well, because the governor replaced it with other money, that the money wasn't cut. But the fact is, if he didn't cut that money, we still would have had the COVID CARES Act money. So we would have had more money devoted to having people's housing needs taken care of. And that's an important point. You have to protect the Sadowski Trust Fund for affordable housing. Not only that, but you have to go back and you have to restore the $2.3 billion that was taken out of that trust fund over between 2003 and 2019 and used for other purposes. We have an affordable housing crisis. We have families who are paying.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
For their rent. It has to be addressed. Thank you.
I'll take the question next. Am I free to answer that question?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
The first thing I really want to sneak in and just say, hey, Comcast does provide a broadband, and in the city of Riviera Beach, we do have it. I just want to make sure that I put that in. As far as affordable housing, the first thing that needs to happen is we need to stop driving the prices to live here in the county up so high. You know, to rent a place here in the county is more expensive than to buy. Now, our county does have different plans that they have. In the city of Riviera Beach, we did a MEHOP plan where we were, as impact fees came in, we would add those to pay some of the impact costs when buying a new home to try to bring down the cost a little. We also gave, $5,000 grants to employees and some of the residents that bought houses in there. The only way to address this is to put more money there. How do you do that? Make sure that the incomes come up. The price of housing keeps going up, but the incomes stay low.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Do you have anything to say in regards to affordable housing?
I do, yes. So I definitely agree with our colleagues here that we do need to protect the Sadowski Fund. And so far, it seems like it's been unrated at this point, but we need to keep an eye on that. And we're also, unfortunately, in, again, uncharted territories here with COVID-19 and the impact that it's having on people in their homes and their ability to keep their jobs. And if they lose their jobs, then they could very likely lose their homes. And I think we really need to have a strong focus on COVID-19 and relief efforts for that, and bettering our unemployment compensation system, and to provide better funding for various programs.
Right. Okay, so we're getting ready to wrap up, but I want to make sure that the candidates prepare themselves. So this is going to be what we call closing arguments, okay? Shanitra, I want you to take the floor real quick because you are our sponsor of the evening. So as you're doing your presentation, the candidates have a minute or so to prepare for their last hour, and I want to increase it to 2 minutes instead of 1 minute because I want everyone to get what they want to say out. And I know that you all probably will want rebuttals after this, but we can't do rebuttals. So say what you want to say and we'll end it. And good luck to each candidate. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us and thank everyone who shared the video. And we need to keep this video going because your vote will matter in August. So Shanika,
thank you. Thank you, Ms. London. And thank you to each and every candidate. Without you guys being here this evening, I wouldn't have an opportunity to sponsor this show. So thank you. Again, Project 12, we are working on the 2021 edition. We've honored 72 men right here in Palm Beach County. They're teachers, they're attorneys, they're physicians, they're preachers, they're athletes. One of the wonderful things about this project is it brings all of these gentlemen together from all walks of life. They develop bonds, they develop friendships, they develop relationships. And our young men can look at this calendar and relate to someone in it. So thank you again for this opportunity. We need your support. My number is 561-632-6051. If you'd like to advertise or be a sponsor for this upcoming year's event, we look forward to it. And thank you again, Miss Kitty London.
Thank you. And I did have viewers say, please have them be respectful on their closing. So what I would challenge you to do, and again, it's up to you, you know, your closing remark is your closing remark and final words are final words, but I would challenge you to make your final comment about you, right? Not about the other person that's next to you, the person you can't stand, the person you don't like, or the person that you feel is not doing their job, but to make this about you, because when we go into that booth in August or we mail in our ballot, we're going to remember your closing remarks and we're going to remember what you said about you, not the other person. So with that being said, I want to start off again with my ladies first, Miss Sienna, and you have 2 minutes to do your closing remarks.
Okay. Again, thank you so much for having me this evening. It was really, really great to connect with all the viewers and to finally meet Mr. Jacquet. And I guess in closing, I'm just going to say that I'd like to say why I decided to join. I entered this race later than all my other opponents. I started working remotely. I am an attorney here in Palm Beach County, and we went remote due to the coronavirus, and that gave me the time to be more in my head and think what is important in life, what is important for me and the area I live in and the people around me. And that was around the time of the George Floyd incident and Black Lives Matter exploding. And I thought to myself, I've been discriminated against. I'm a Lebanese woman, and I've, as an Arab, we can be targets too. And it's not fun. And when I saw, on social media, everybody posting the black squares, well, at first I thought there was something wrong with my Instagram, but then I realized it was intentional because everybody was doing it. I'm scrolling through seeing this, and I thought to myself, I could post a black square too, or I could do something more. And that was when I decided to get the paperwork to qualify for office, and I had no idea really how to do any of it, but I figured it out. And that's pretty much the story of my life. I encounter things that I don't know how to do, but I figure out the way to get it done and get it done in the best way possible. And so that was the main motivating factor. And there's nothing wrong with posting on social media, but I think that I have a calling to do something more, something higher, and I want to represent the people here and help the people here in District 88. I am a skilled negotiator, I am a skilled trial lawyer, and I think that District 88 needs a skilled lawyer to be their lawmaker. Thank you.
Thank you.
That went by quick. Was that 2 minutes, Shanika?
Yep, she was just under 2 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
My God, I'm glad I gave you
Awesome.
a minute. My gosh, that was so quick, but okay. All right, Mr. Thomas, you're up. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
did you reset the timer with him? Please reset. Okay.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for hosting this, Kitty, and thank you, Ms. Moore, for being the timer. It was definitely well worth it. Just wasn't enough time. The first thing I want to say is I don't want to be disingenuous. A Palm Beach Post reporter called me today. I think they called everybody, and I said that I was going to talk about this, so I got to talk about this really quick. My only problem with any of the candidates in this is with Mr. Hardy, because he doesn't live in District 88. He's going to ask you to do something. He's going to ask you to go vote for him when he won't do the same thing. His ballot will not have his name on it. I think it's disingenuous to live in 87. There's one Democrat opponent in District 87, and their money is parallel with each other. He could really win that seat. Instead, he decided not to fight for his constituents. He decided to get out of where he should run into this one. I've been here. You didn't have to ask who I was because you've seen me over the years. This is not new to me. I'm true to this. I know that I'm the best candidate for this job, not because I can out-argue these individuals, because I have the passion that it takes to go up there. Appropriations is the #1 thing that has to happen. This district is gerrymandered. Probably one of the most gerrymandered districts that we have. And do you know why? It was to get a Black representative in. That's why it was gerrymandered. That's why we've only had 4 or 5 representatives since the history of it. The reason why I know that I'm the one that you should send is because I have a history of doing things, whether it's taking kids to Tallahassee, 100 of them, letting them see what our government is, or whether it's building community centers in our community, or whether it's adding street lights or repaving roads, or if it's just celebrating the seniors that we have in this community. I've been doing it. I just didn't start this. My question to you is, at the end of the day, who deserves this most?
Thank you.
If you're fed up, send said up.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
.com for any other questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Mr. Hardy, you're up next.
Thank you again, Kitty and Shanitra, for facilitating this conversation. The first thing that I'll say is, I serve on the Lake Worth Beach City Commission, and District 88 runs through Lake Worth Beach. And the reason why I'm in this race is because people who are representatives in the community asked me to be in this race. That's why I have the endorsement of a Dr. Deborah Robinson, of a Kashamba Miller Anderson, a Joe Anderson, a Corey Nearing, or Richard Riles. That's why I have the endorsements of the people who have been serving this district and serving this district faithfully for a very long time, because they recognize that we need someone who's going to be a strong advocate for this district. And, I just want to go back and recap something. Back in March, the city started cutting off people's utilities, their lights and their water, right as the COVID-19 pandemic was setting in. And I could not get my colleagues to agree that we should suspend those shutoffs. And so it is true, I had to go to the media, and it is true that we had a meeting, and I showed up to that meeting, and you're daggone right, I turned it out. And while I recognize that you can't go to every single meeting and turn out every single meeting, you do sometimes have to have a little fire and a little passion and a little tenacity in you. And the question was raised as to what was the result of that? Well, the result of that was my colleagues felt an emotion called shame. And when folks in the community realized what we were doing to our residents, even as FPL had stopped shutting people off, and I publicized that, and I made them feel that emotion called shame, we stopped cutting people's utilities off. And I get that you can't do that all the time, but this district needs an advocate who's going to show up with passion, tenacity, some fire, and also a command of the issues, which I believe I've demonstrated throughout the discussion this evening. And so if you were to vote for me on August 18th or before, with your vote by mail ballot, I'm going to go up there and do for the people of District 88 what I've done for my constituents in Lake Worth, which is fight the good fight for them and their well-being, and to do it intelligently and with the skills that I picked up, not only as an educator, but also as a city commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Thank you so much.
It's on you.
All right, I was just waiting for the go, because thank you, guys. I want to thank you, Ms. London, and thank you, Ms. Moore and Project 12 for having this event. And it is true. I've been in the community, staying away from social media, staying away from the hype of politics, because my community has truly needed me. The young folks who play all the time in the community, who need a physical mentor to talk to when they have an issue, they needed me. the first responders who happened to live within the community, who had less protective equipment than others, they needed me. So while I was not putting on a performance, that is true, but I was talking to the governor and to the state of Florida. FPNL and everyone agreed during COVID that they would not shut off anyone's utilities. It is unfortunate that the bills for the city, for some cities, came out a day or two prior to that decision. So we had to look it over to say, wait, this bill came out 2 days prior, and that was only the issue. There was no need for performance to gain a stage to run for office. And what I want to say is, one of the most important things right now is to make sure you that are watching this fill out the census. Don't be bamboozled. The census is not truly about your community's funding. If it was, it would ask you about the bridges and schools. It doesn't. Those are the surveys. This is really for your representation. It is true in Palm Beach County, we have one Black state rep. My sole purpose during redistricting is to make sure we have 2 seats for Blacks. I didn't hear that mentioned. Districts, so many other districts around here that we could serve. I've put body cameras on police officers in Delray after Corey Jones. We need to make sure we have more Black judges as a criminal defense lawyer, more Black officers, and thank you, Mr. Thomas, for serving, more Black chiefs and sheriffs. We created a Delray Reads program where we read to the kids every year, the biggest program and very effective. We put in broadband to cut off the digital divide, 3% raise for state employees, raises for teachers. And again, guys, send me back to Tallahassee. We will continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right. We are ending at 10:04. I want to just say thank you. Mr. Jacquet, I know you don't do this often. They were running, where were you?
And I won't do it again unless they Black and they in District 88.
Okay, and you came on the show, so I want to say thank you. Thank you, Omari. Thank you, Cedric. Thank you, Sienna.
There's too much fake news
thank
out
you,
there.
Shanitra. I couldn't do it without you, girl. I could not do this without you tonight. But I just want
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for keeping it real and not doing no political,
Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Make sure you share this video and like the People of Power page. Thank you, Miss Kitty London, for giving them a platform to share their views on the different policies. We appreciate you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to my opponents. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Have a
Everybody
good
have a good night. See you later.
Remember to vote. Vote.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Vote Cedric Thomas.